Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, all.
Good morning, all. Yes.
Welcome back. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us for session 6 of the Nonprofit Management Institute. We're gonna jump right into things in the interest of time because we do have some content to cover with respect to fundraising. I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Lisa, to give a quick thanks to our partners and sponsors, and then also go over our agenda.
Yes, hello. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, enjoyed the beautiful weather, and then stayed dry yesterday, and then now we're back to sun. So if your body's as confused as mine, it is what it is. So as you remember that plane that we were steady here, now we're starting to do this and about to land today, and we're going to be back at our original destination. Hope we had a great vacation together. So again, I want to thank our partners, Triangle Community Foundation, Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, Duke University, and Truist, who has sponsored this whole learning series, and hopefully we'll continue to do so in the future so we can continue to bring good information to you. For today, we're moving on to session 6. Again, as you can see, it's a full agenda. Dr. Palmer will do a short review of some items in session 5 before we move on to review. Then we'll have our wonderful graduation session. And as usual, as you all have been greatly doing, and we really appreciate it, filling out the evaluations. Again, can't stress how important that is because it helps us to improve on our next go round. And then we'll have our closing. And again, we have hopefully put breaks in good places for you, but if not, feel free as you need to either tell us you need a break, which is fine, or take it as your leisure. And here we go, Dr. Palmer.
All right, well, good morning. Our new content information for today is human resources. However, we're going to complete our fundraising topic before we go into human resources. And if we could just leave it on the gallery here for a minute. We are off and running today, and we are graduating today. So I'm standing between the whole cohort and graduation time. So we are going to move through our content in a very explicit fashion related to fundraising, because there's about 45 minutes of work that we need to do to complete that topic. And then we will take a break, and then we'll move into the new content related to human resources. I'll go ahead and give you a heads up with the human resources information. It's quite a bit of information out, right? So information kind of coming to you from more or less a one-way kind of communicative perspective. So kind of get geared up for that. There's probably about 20 items of content related to human resources. There is a document, a handout document that you will be referring to that has quite a few links in that information. So I just want to kind of get our minds kind of ready for somewhat of a switch. We're going to do some hands-on work with fundraising, switch gears, and go into some specific content about personnel administration and human resources. So just kind of want to get us ready for what the next 3 hours will entail. Right at about 12 o'clock, we'll take another break, and then we will return. It'll be a quick break. We'll return and we will go right into our graduation. And then we will conclude the Nonprofit Management Institute for the spring of 2022. So I just wanted to kind of give you the lay of the land, just so you know kind of what direction we're taking. And as Lisa mentioned, please manage yourselves accordingly. If you do, if you're in need of a break, feel free to do so, but also let us know as well. And we can incorporate those, but it looks like we're going to have right at 3 breaks as we kind of work through our information today. And so that's kind of where we are. Jean is with us, and so I see her message in the chat. So know that our president and CEO is helping and assisting today as well. So let's see. If I can, if we can make sure everybody is mute, and so that we can kind of proceed now.
Dr. Palmer, I think you're on mute now.
Oh, okay. So when I said go on mute, I went on mute too.
Dr. Palmer, I think that was my bad. I was trying to mute someone else and I think I muted you by accident.
See
My
there, Rebecca,
apologies.
I was going right into complimenting folks on the backgrounds, their graduation backgrounds.
There we go.
I see Leah, I see Kelly. I see that some folks have already popped in there. A change in the backgrounds that they're using for today's festivities. It's always great to celebrate, and so we're definitely going to do some of that towards the end. Okay, team, if you could take me to the fundraising stages PowerPoint slide, that would be number 22. Perfect, thank you. So at the end of our time together on last week, we teed up this focus on fundraising strategies, fundraising stages. And within those stages are different strategies that we utilize, different practices, different ways that we go about implementing a fundraising plan. I do want to make a couple comments about fundraising, and I think I've probably said this about just about every topic that we have discussed in this institute, and that is, it all takes time. In order for us to see the benefit of utilizing some of the principles we know that work, it is working the principles consistently over time that yields the results. And I always say, when I'm working with executive directors and boards of nonprofits, as it relates to fundraising, you know, fundraising is a every day, every week, every month, every year task. It is a function of managing a nonprofit that doesn't stop. It continues. And we should have kind of a 12-month plan in terms of how fundraising plan is being implemented over a 12-month period, only to start up again, right, at the beginning of the next 12 months. And some fundraising plans are based on the fiscal year, or they align with the fiscal year. And then some nonprofits will have their fundraising plans based on a calendar year. That is at the discretion. There's not one way is better than the other. It's pretty much what works for your nonprofit and the way in which you want to engage and the way in which you want to implement fundraising strategies. And so it is very commonplace for boards of directors to have a fundraising committee, and that fundraising committee is then responsible for engaging and continuing the work around fundraising on a consistent basis. I highly encourage fundraising committees. Yes, nonprofit organizations, we do have individuals who whose staff roles are specifically around fund development, fundraising, grant writing, you know, a variety of ways in which we get dollars in the door. But not all nonprofits are fortunate enough to be able to staff an individual whose primary responsibility is fundraising. Now, I say that, and just last week, we talked about diversifying our revenue stream. And we looked at a nonprofit's overall picture. It was a pie chart. We looked at that picture and we utilized that picture to help us to see what we mean when we say diversification of revenue. Now, one could argue it's very difficult to create and develop that particular picture in your nonprofit if you don't have a staff person designated to do that. That can be difficult. And it can be difficult if we don't have a fundraising committee that's a part of our board. I have seen where nonprofits will divvy up the fundraising duties across positions when they don't have the resources to have one designated person. And so again, it is important to, you know, just keep in mind that you have to do what works for your nonprofit and also what you have the capacity to do, and then plan for the future in terms of how you want to see that change. So I just wanted to kind of begin kind of in thinking about these stages. There's a backdrop, and the backdrop that I just provided is very important. We don't wave a magic wand and all of a sudden fundraising is doing what we need it to do. It takes work, it takes management, it takes strategy, it takes making mistakes, it takes all of that to get us to the picture that we reviewed last week. And that particular organization, if you were to talk to that executive director, of whom I know, would tell you it took a decade to get there. I'm just gonna pause there for a minute. It took them a decade to get there. It doesn't have to take a decade for the rest of us, because we know what some principles, and we're gonna learn some ways to do that, but it doesn't happen overnight. And we don't fundraise for payroll that's due at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month. We fundraise without ceasing. And so that is an important message for me to share with you today. Fundraising can definitely be lots of fun. I do know nonprofit organizations that inform us that they do fundraising, right? They do fundraising. And so it is definitely a way to get people, stakeholders excited about your nonprofit and supporting it. And definitely engage people who are creative and innovative and in particular know how to make social media, right, a free platform in most cases, work for you as it relates to fundraising. And so we're going to look at these 4 stages: identification, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. We're going to start with identification today. One of the handouts that I want you to refer to is on page 111. That is a worksheet that we're going to use. And as we get, let me get over here to my page to make sure that I am on the right page too. We shared with us all of I did kind of an overview last week of all of the different resources that you have in your manual. And so we don't have to do that today because we did that last week. So now I'm going to be utilizing these different handouts and resource materials to help us to build out these stages, or to help us to begin to understand better how to build out these different stages or work in these different stages as it relates to fundraising. If we could go back to the gallery real quick. Thank you. So in the identification stage, here what we're focusing on today is the donor base, or having a donor base. It's very difficult to fundraise if we haven't identified who we're going to ask for donations. And so in thinking about your prospects, it's important to consider our prospects related to those individuals who have been giving already to your nonprofit. Also, those individuals who you want to approach for the first time, and individuals who have given, but they've only given one time. And so there's a way in which we can frame those. And I do believe I kind of left off here as well last week. So in terms of framing these three different segments, is what we call it, of prospects. We have what we identify as being the individuals that have given to our organizations on a regular basis as being habitual donors, right? So they have a habit of giving, and they give, there's a track record. We can see that they've given 3 to maybe 5 years, 2, 3, 5 years consistently, or we can see that. We also have what we call the thoughtful donor. And those are individuals who have given consistently and continue to give, but they also give at times when you do campaigns for something special. So they give their regular gift, and then they give on top of that when the time comes. And then there is what we call the impulse donor, impulse. And that is the donor
We shall
that
see.
gives, that is
And I
the
think having the
donor
attorney
that
on-
gives. That is the donor, impulse donor. That is the donor that has given the one time, right? So they've given once for whatever reason, they've given, and we want them to become a habitual donor. And then we want them to become a thoughtful donor. So it's a journey in terms of our prospects. Impulse, habitual, thoughtful, donor prospects. We want to also consider managing this donor base. So where do we store the information about our donors? Where do we store this information? It can be as simple as utilizing your Microsoft Office software and creating an Excel workbook with that information in it. Or it could be a little bit more sophisticated, and you might utilize, and we'll come back to some of this, or you could utilize a more formal platform to house and store your donor information. But to begin with, we've got to have some prospects. So we're going to work on developing a prospect list as one nonprofit this morning. So I can see 52 participants on this call, and we are all stakeholders of nonprofit ABC. And we are going to generate a master prospect list. That's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to generate a master prospect list. So let's turn to your handout. That was a lot of talking, wasn't it? I feel like I just talked a long, long time. And I promise you, I'm not a preacher, but that kind of felt a little bit like preaching. So So you have in your manual, you have a worksheet, and it's called the prospect identification list. At the very top, you have a place for a contact name, and then you have some columns. The contact name is going to be you, because we are all going to be helpers in generating a prospect list for, what was the name of the nonprofit we are this morning? What's the name of the nonprofit? I just said it a second ago. What's the name?
ABC.
ABC, that's right. We're ABC. All right, so we're ABC nonprofit. All right, so what we're gonna do individually is we're gonna generate a list of 15 people that we know, right? So that's in column 1. Don't think long and hard about it. Just how many people do you know? 15 people right off the top. You can write first name, you can write last name and first name, you can write nickname, you can write whatever name comes to mind for you. What are the first 15 people that come to mind for you that you know? So we're gonna start there. First 15 people that come to mind. This is anybody, because remember, we are ABC nonprofit. Some of us are staff, some of us are board, some of us are volunteers. We are the nonprofit, and we are all going to generate a list. So anybody that you know, this is kind of a mixed stakeholder group that we are in this example. So I'm going to give you like 60 seconds. Don't want you to think long and hard about it. Just give us 15 names, right? And so the countdown is on, Rebecca. So we have 60 seconds to generate these names. And if you haven't had your coffee, have your coffee, because I'm gonna move us through this activity. I want you to kind of get the gist of it. I see Rebecca has the timer in her window. So we are counting down. Rick, I see that nice smile this morning. You must be as happy as I am today. I don't know if it's the sunshine or what.
I think so. It was a nice long weekend.
Yeah,
So needed. And now the
yes,
sun.
absolutely.
I'll be quiet. You all have 30 seconds left. That was the timer.
Oh, was it? Okay. All right, great. That was fun. Okay, so here we are. You have your 15 names. Now I want you to go down your list for me, and the nonprofit that you are representing today is ABC Nonprofit, right? And our mission and our focus is to support school-age children with academics. Keep it real simple. Supporting school-age children with their academics, whatever that means. Tutoring, mentoring, all of the above, right? So that's our focus. That's our purpose. That's what our nonprofit is all about. In the second column, I want you to put a check mark by the person that you have on your list, or persons that believe in that same cause. That not that they know about us, not that they know who our nonprofit is, but that they believe in helping school-age children succeed academically, right? That they believe in that. So go down that list for me, and I want you to check by the name of the people who believe in that. Okay, all right, moving right along. Of the people you checked, so I want to get a sense of how how many people's names you checked. So how many did you check? Just put it in the chat real quick. Of the 15, how many did you check? Okay. All right. I see all 15 was checked on one. All. Okay. All right. We're doing great. Now, of the people that you checked, I want you to go down the list and I want you to indicate which ones of those individuals do you know already donate to some cause, any cause, doesn't matter what, but they give money away, whether it's $10, 10 million, 10,000, 10 cents. Who are the people that believe in our cause to help school-age children academically? How many of those individuals give money to any cause for any purpose or any reason? I like what I'm seeing in the chat. 10 of 10 give money. All of them give money. We're doing great. We are doing absolutely great. So now we want you to only identify the ones that you know give money, right? Not that you think, not that you guess, but that you know, hey, I know this person or these individuals give money. Asia, I saw that. that they give money. Okay, great. Now, of the individuals that give money, I want you to indicate in that last column, how much are you going to ask them to give to our ABC nonprofit? How much are you going to ask them to give? We don't have a goal yet. Oh, well, yeah, let me give a goal. Let's say our goal is $500,000. Our goal is $500,000. Right? Our goal is $500,000. Gotta have a goal. It's $500,000. And so how much are you gonna ask for this individual? I saw, is this a recurrent? So we're going for 1 year. This is our operating budget. So we need cash this year, right? We need money now. So this is not a pledge. This is how much money will you ask these individuals that you already know support this cause, they already give money, and we want to approach them to give money to our cause. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So we are trying to get money now. All right. So you should have a filled out worksheet at this point. You should have a filled out worksheet. In your packet, you also have, well, no, let's not go there yet. We're gonna now go into our breakout rooms. And in your breakout room, we want you to begin to tally with the folks in your breakout room. How many, because we're looking at just the last column at this point. We're just looking at the last column. How many individuals do you have noted that you are going to ask for a donation? And then what is the total? So if I've got 10 people that I've marked out of the 15 that I'm gonna ask for money, and I'm gonna ask all 10 of those individuals for $10 each, let's just say. So that's 10 individuals, that's $100. So when you go into your breakout room, we need you to tally that as one group, right? And so if someone from your group can do that, kind of take the lead once you get in, everybody is going to share how many people they've noted will give and how much will those individuals give. Okay. And so Rebecca is going to put us into breakouts. Please introduce yourselves if you go into a breakout and you don't know folks yet. I am hoping that we are close to having been in some breakout rooms with some different folks. So Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to pop you into some rooms here. And I'll pop in what you all are supposed to do into the broadcast that to all the breakout rooms so you have that, okay? And we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. All right.
Well, welcome back. We are going to press on with our work today. And Rebecca, I wanted Rebecca to just kind of share with us some of our classmates are a little under the weather. So Rebecca, if you would just kind of let them know how we're gonna be attentive to them as best we can.
Yeah, I know there's plenty of stuff going around besides COVID. We forgot about all those other things, right? We got distracted by COVID, but there's still lots of other stuff that's been going around, including allergies. So I know some of you will be off camera because of that and sort of tending to your own needs, personal needs. So feel free to do what you need to do, and wishing you all a speedy recovery, feeling better soon.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. So what I'd like to do is, in this process of prospecting, right? So what I want to do is tally our numbers. And so I am going to have just each group, if you could just give me a shout out. So there's 6 groups. I need the number of donors and the total dollar amount for those donors that your group identified. And we can start anywhere.
Okay,
Just give me
awesome.
a-
So group 4, $67 amount, $15,825.
Thank you. Next group.
I'll go. Group 2. We had 8 people in the group, but only 7 of us were able to share. So we came up with a total of 64 donors at $304,000.
Thank you. Next group.
I'll
Group
go
six.
next. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in group 3. We had 41 donors and our total amount was $73,480.
Thank you. And if I could have, I'm recording, but if someone on my team could be adding up the numbers, that would be great. All right, next group.
Group 6, it was 5 donors, 4 of us could speak. We didn't write down the exact number, but we came up with $59,300. We didn't write down the number of donors. It was about 40 donors because
Okay.
we all agreed to 10.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we all agreed to 10 donors, and we all agreed to the amount that we would ask, and the total came up to $59,300.
Thank you so much. We got 2 more groups to go.
This is group 5. I don't think we counted our donors, but the amount we had $42,350. I'm just gonna take a guess and say we had about 40-ish donors.
Okay,
I guess.
thank you.
And I think our group maybe last,
we had a really good corporate fundraiser in our group. So our total was 767,850. If he wants to be on my fundraising committee for the Ranger Boating Resource Center, he's welcome, as are
There you
many of
go.
you, any of you.
That's how you do it, Kelly. That's
Yes,
exactly how you do it.
Yes, and best estimate, I would say we had about between 70 and 80 donors because we
So
had 9 people in our
I'm
group.
gonna say 70. Okay. So team, number of donors was 70, 64, 41, 67, 40, and 40. I don't know what that total, if you all would help me with that.
You get 322, is that right?
Okay. All right. So that's 322 prospects. Okay. And then the dollar amount was 767,850, 304,000, 73,480, 15,825, 42,350, and 59,300.
1.262805.
All right, so $1,262,805 is what we are asking. And our goal was what?
500,000.
Uh-huh.
And
So
I
this-
will be asking everybody in this group to contribute to Shepherd's Care Medical Clinic in the near future. Thank you.
I love it, love it. So here is the concept. We just did the concept. And you can repeat this with stakeholders of your nonprofit organization. So the next part of this, so this is the identification, right? Now we can do a deeper dive, right? We can, if you look at page 112, the master worksheet, we would be transferring information. We would be transferring the names of those 322 prospects in that first column. We would be identifying how we're going to contact them. Are we going to contact them by phone? Are we going to contact them by letter? Are we going to how are we going to contact them? The next column, the solicitor, would be who's going to contact them? Like who is actually going to who's going to reach out? Because just because they're on my list doesn't mean that I'm going to be the one to contact them. It could be someone different. So that's important to put a little highlight, a little star, because a lot of times we make the assumption that because I give the name, I'm the one to make the ask, and that may not necessarily be true. Then we're going to land on the amount, right, that we're going to ask for. And we have that in the identification process. Now, that could change because once we all come together, some of us may know the same people. And so therefore, we might kind of put our heads together and make that ask a little different. And then we have a column there for other information. So other information can go in this column. So what we've generated now is we've generated foundational information to begin to develop a donor database. And we did that in how many minutes? How many minutes did it take us? And we did it by Zoom. And we did it by Zoom. So you can repeat this exercise. You can repeat this exercise. So that's the identification stage. The next stage is cultivation. Now we have to cultivate this cluster, this group, these 322 prospects. We have to cultivate. The next task is for us to cultivate this group. And so in cultivation, in your packet, if you go to page 114, 115, and 116, those are all handouts in our packet here. 114 is what we know to be people rules of fundraising. So if we're going to cultivate this list of 322, that's a lot of prospects, y'all. That's a whole lot of prospects. And if we're going to cultivate this list, then we have to determine what our general kind of overarching philosophy approach is around asking for these donations. And so we represent ABC Nonprofit. We are all about the academics of school-age children, and that is what it is that we are promoting. And so we want dollars to help us do that work. And so we have to consider in the cultivation for each of these 322, we want to identify what would move them to say yes, right? I mean, that's the question. So now you come back to me, I've given you 10, right, of the 322. Okay, now Pamela, tell us how do we need to approach this person? That's the cultivation part, because we want to make sure we're approaching in a way that matches up with the individual that we're wanting to ask. And so we've got the Donor Bill of Rights, which is on page 115. And these are just some general principles to understand as it relates to individuals who give. You know, if I give a donation to our nonprofit and I have questions about the funding, for example, and what we're giving to or what we're spending our money on, and as a nonprofit, then that kind of information should be disclosed. And that kind of information should be shared. When you get to page 115, this cultivation, we have to store this information in a protected place. So we just don't want these 322 names just laying around, you know, just kind of available for anyone to review and to
Dr. Palmer, I think you're on mute somehow. It wasn't me this time, I promise.
I don't know what.
I don't know.
I don't know what. I don't know. It's a ghost in the virtual room. So there are some examples of donor databases. A couple of you asked that question before, and so with the donor databases, some of our nonprofits use Salesforce. Some of our nonprofits use eTapestry. That's one that is used. Some nonprofits create, I mentioned this a second ago, they create their database using their Microsoft software. They put it in an Excel workbook and they can look at the information from there. That's a good starting point. And also I see one called Breeze in the chat. And so you can utilize you can store and kind of manage this information in a database in a variety of ways. There's no one way to do it. Some of our platforms also have a element where, let's say if you have a donate button on your website that is linked back to the platform. So that's another way that you can store that information. I see one called Bloomerang. If you did a Google, I did this. If you do a Google search of donor database platforms, you're going to get a lot of different versions. If you haven't started one yet, I'm going to encourage you to start with the Excel workbook. Just start with that. And because if you're going to purchase the use of a platform, you want to know what you need it to do. And if you haven't experimented with it, you could be spending money and not have selected a platform that's going to do what you need it to do. So minimally, we want to be able to store information. We want to be able to generate mailings, labels. You know, we want to be able to utilize the database to help us to communicate with that donor base. So that would be kind of what I would say there. If you look at page 115, we just have a few nuggets here. I've said all of this in this kind of cultivation. This is the use of a donor base or a database to store our information. So we want to move this 322 prospects to now donors, right? If they've not given, we want to move them to that. If we could go to the PowerPoint slide 24. So this is cultivation. We just did identification. We just did that. So we want to move our prospects to new donors. We want to identify who the existing donors are on that list, because we may very well approach them differently. We want to use a donor a database to store information about our donors. And then we want to kind of look at their giving patterns. What were the three that I shared? What were the three types of donors?
Impulse, habitual, and thoughtful.
All right, great. So if I am the impulse donor today, over time, you want to move me to habitual, and over time, you want to move me to thoughtful. And the way to do that is to communicate with me, if that's what I prefer. Some donors don't want us to communicate with, they just want to give, and some people want to give anonymously and all of that, and we have to respect that. So that cultivation is understanding the donor as an individual donor, not in a group, but as an individual donor. And you want to store that information in your database. And keep in mind, this all takes time. This all takes time. So once we've done that, then we want to solicit. We want to solicit for the gift. So we want to, actually do the ask. So on page 116, that would be pretty simple. You only get money if you ask for it. So now it's time for some of us to have some courage and to begin to make the ask, once we've identified that. So the next stage is solicitation. And that is now we're gonna generate the communication that is necessary for us to make the ask. So if we could go to the next slide, which is solicitation. We're making the ask, and now it is donor relations time. So the solicitation is the actual asking, and then once we make that ask, then we are going to continue that relationship. And the more we know about our donor, the thought is the more effective we can be at maintaining a relationship that generates the giving that we so desperately need for some of our nonprofit organizations. And so if you look in your manual on page 117, we've given you kind of a picture here of kind of a fundraising plan. And this one is focused on raising $4,000. Now, our goal was $500,000. And by the time we finished prospecting, we had close to 1.3 million, right? Almost 1.3 million of prospective dollars. So this is another tool on page 117. Now we have here, we are listing the particular donors here, and then the strategies that we're going to use to inquire with those donors. So this is another way, a picture. This is a Word document, by the way, this image, this table. And so you would be generating a similar table for your nonprofit. We would simply have as our goal at the top for today would be 500,000. This is spring 2022. And we have 322 prospects. We're making the ask to all of them. We've identified what strategies we're going to utilize to engage with them. And so here's a way for us to do that. Stewardship, once we have acquired the gift, we want to thank the people that we have asked. And so that is the next slide there. We want to recognize our donors in terms of that. And we want to also pay attention to any guidelines that the donor requests of us. You know, sometimes donors will have a specific request. And if we could go to the next slide. So this stewardship is the donor recognition, the giving guidelines. And I always say, when it comes to fundraising, don't make it complicated. Keep it real simple. You know, these are our prospects, these are new folks, these are existing folks, these are people that have given both habitually and to campaigns. We're going into our annual campaign. Most nonprofits have an annual campaign, meaning they are asking for dollars for the operations of that nonprofit every single year. And so we most of the time, individuals, donors, if they have any guidelines, they will let you know. And so we want to pay attention to that and respect that. We have another tool for you on page 118, another tool, and that tool is another kind of table that you can use. And notice we're talking type of fundraising in this tool, page 118, the type of tool here. And so we're looking at direct mail, we're looking at a personal solicitation, we're looking at special events. You know, there's specific ways that we might want to engage in fundraising. And then we've got the different stages there, just kind of as a way for you to record how you might approach utilizing these resources. We're talking, I see there's a question about the campaign period. Typically for an annual campaign, you're talking about like a 3 to 4 month window. So like a quarter, like a 3 to 4 month for an annual campaign. But remember, you're campaigning all year, you're fundraising all year, but you may have a designated time. Maybe it's March 1 to June 30 if your fiscal year ends at the end of the year. Some of you receive United Way funds, and so you may have a blackout period that you can't fundraise during a certain time of the year because your local United Way is fundraising and you're one of the recipients of those dollars. So if you don't have any of those restrictions, you know, it's pretty open as to when you might do your campaign. But I would say you open it up at the beginning of that quarter and then close it out, and then it's just more intense during that period, but you are raising money all the time. You are raising money all the time. We can go to the next slide. So in terms of your, well, look in your manual, page 119. Real quick, now we've covered quite a bit of information there. So real quick in your, you know, on page 119, let's see if you can pass the scavenger hunt test, right? In terms of the information that you have on the pages following this. So on these pages, we're going to be looking at the number of giving programs or types of giving programs, what the giving programs are, and then the donor types and how that aligns with a particular giving program. So if you refer to pages 120 and 121, let's see if we can fill that in. It's page 120. Let me tell you what we have. All of these pages line up and go together. So that would be page 120 and page 120 to 123. Right? Page 120 to 123. And we are answering the questions on page 119. Page 120 to 123, and we are answering the questions on page 119. And team, I'm just gonna go silent here for a few minutes. We can go back to gallery and let our participants see what they can find for me. We're coming up on a break here soon. So as you're finishing with page 119, I want to just remind us that our 4 stages of fundraising is identification, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. That's kind of one piece of the puzzle. Then the next part of that is the communication with the donor base. Once you've set that up. Now what we're talking about are the different approaches to fundraising, and we've identified those as fundraising programs. And our work on page 119 helps us to understand all the pieces to that. Okay, are we all good? Give me some reaction. I want to make sure that we've finished the stages. Now we're specifically looking at programs, fundraising programs, and what that looks like. I see some thumbs up. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, let's do some shout outs and answer our scavenger hunt questions. So the scavenger hunt was to review pages 120 through 123 and to utilize those pages to help us to answer some questions. How many, what's the number of giving programs? 3, 3, 3, yes, perfect. So our 3 giving programs, if you look at page 120, is estate giving, major giving, annual giving. And notice that the annual giving is the foundation. So the idea here is that we want to grow our fundraising work. We want to grow that from being just annual giving to being able to do capital campaigns for major giving when we need to, and then also planned giving of individuals who plan to give to our organization long after they are with us. And so that is the picture, this pyramid of giving. You will see this pyramid of giving in all the literature related to fundraising. This is just a very common way of showing that. So those are our giving programs. Now that we've identified the pyramid, what do you think the symbolism is of the pyramid? I've jumped down to the last question. We'll come back to the matching. What is the symbolism of the pyramid, you think?
That there's a smaller, the top represents a smaller number of givers. The bottom base is more broad as far as the number. However, in a pyramid, the top is the finer and the more quality. Not that a smaller donation is not as quality, but once you get to the top, those numbers are limited and they're probably at a much higher point.
Thank you, Ms. Mangum. Yes, so this image for us is to help us to understand the individual giving is very important to any fundraising strategy over time. The donor base is very important. Doing fundraising continuously is very important. And that if we can build this foundation, then if we need to do a major giving ask, then it's more doable. And if we want to engage in dialogue or communication with individuals to upgrade them to not only giving annually and with our major giving, but to consider leaving a gift for our ABC nonprofit in the event that they're no longer with us, right? So that is really kind of the messaging, and that is the idea, is that that foundation, if we can build that foundation, then we can actualize right up to the top, that we can make it to that. Now, the other thing is we offered quite a bit of help with understanding each of these giving programs. We offered quite a bit of help. On page 121, we gave a narrative for each of these. I've already talked about annual giving, and then I gave a snippet about the major giving. These are major giving campaigns when you're wanting to do a bigger project or there's a bigger need that our nonprofit has. And then of course the estate giving. And then we gave examples on page 122, examples of each of these types of programs and what it is you would be pursuing. And then the remainder, the final handout here on page 123, we emphasize annual giving. That's what we're doing here, is emphasizing annual giving. That is very, very important. So the next piece of information that's in your manual is we gave a characteristics of a successful fundraiser checklist. How many times have I watched the news and I see a 10-year-old or 11-year-old or 12-year-old who started a nonprofit and started raising money, and they didn't even go through a training. They just said, hey, I want to do something for someone or for a particular cause, and they set out to do it. Why do I bring up that type of example? Because we want to keep it simple and practical. We can all ask, right? We can. And so if we don't ask, then we don't get the resources that we need. And so that's very, very important. Some of us may think that we are not fundraisers. You know, we say, I'm not a fundraiser, but you can help. And with 52 of us, we were able to generate 322 prospects. And so we just have to decide who's going to do the asking. We all have the ability to, but we may not necessarily be the ones identified to do the asking. So that is your information as it relates to the fundraising manual. I mean, the handouts related to fundraising in your manual. If we could go back to the slide deck and go to number 29. So our fund development strategies. So we've already talked about fundraising programs. Now we're looking at fund development strategies. We know that we are trying to move towards having a diversified portfolio of where our dollars are coming from. Grant writing is a fund development strategy. Earned revenue is a fund development strategy. Social entrepreneurship is a fund development strategy. And social entrepreneurship is a way in which we can generate dollars as it aligns with the cause for our nonprofit. So we might, since we're ABC nonprofit, for example, a social entrepreneurship way of generating dollars might be to engage our youth in a business venture. And maybe it is a lemonade stand, or maybe it is selling Girl Scout cookies. You do know selling Girl Scout cookies is a social entrepreneurship tool. It is a way to enhance and grow leaders and support them as they are selling Girl Scout cookies and building their business skills, their leadership skills, and also they're able to help generate dollars for the Girl Scouts. And that is national. And that effort takes place every single year. And we all look forward to it because we buy like 100 boxes of cookies and we put them in our freezers and we stash them all over our houses because it comes around once a year. And so over time, it has built our habit of buying that product. And so it is for that purpose in terms of that. So fund development strategies, and then fund development human resources. I mentioned this earlier, not to be repetitive, but in terms of, oh, Rosemary says she eats all her cookies in one weekend. She doesn't save hers. She doesn't store them all over her house like the rest of us do. Yes, there are three giving. Are the three giving programs part of the funding development strategies? The three giving programs, those are three fundraising programs. Three fundraising programs. Fund development is on top of fundraising. It's in addition to fundraising. Thanks for that question. Fund development is, and it could be more than this list. For your nonprofit, it might be some additional things here. But these are the more common ones that I see. So these are on top of fundraising. That was a excellent question. I already mentioned this before. Who's going to do the fund development, or who's going to do the fundraising? The committee, fundraising committee, staff, volunteers, and the different ways that you're going to bring individuals to participate and engage may be different from one nonprofit to the next. And so if we could go back to gallery, that would be great. All right. Oh, fundraising. Fundraising takes time. It takes coming up with your own approach. I don't know, team, if I've caught the questions. I try to keep up with the questions in the chat. Not sure.
There was
there
one
any-
that we skipped over, but from Eric Lewis, what is the best practice on the length of the campaign period?
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think I spoke to that. Again, you may be receiving funding from a source that has some stipulations, right? That have some guidelines, and United Way is one of those. So I know in our community, nonprofits that receive United Way dollars through a certain period of time, it's normally like end of year, then those nonprofits have agreed, that is their agreement, that they won't fundraise during that time. So that's considered a blackout period. So you may, that kind of begins to streamline when you can kind of run your public campaign for raising money each year. So there's that. Decide where you want to start. I do think there's a question there, Rebecca. I do think you know, I'm a Google queen. I just Google stuff. But I do know when you Google, there was a question about job descriptions. If you Google whatever the job description is, anybody can agree with me. If you Google it, you're gonna get a gazillion images and items with that. I mean, that's a starting point. I don't want to imply that Google is the go-to source, but it can definitely get you started. And kind of guide. And then also the NC Center for Nonprofits has a resource on its website, and it's labeled Information Central. And you can key in information, keywords, and then it will bring up resources available based on the principles. Remember that principles and practices guide that we talked about 5 sessions ago? I'm going to let Rebecca give you a little bit more detail on how to access that. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to show them real quick, it might not take but a nanosecond, just to take them to the website as to where they can get this information from.
Sure thing. So let me share my screen with you all. So as you can see here, a couple of things. If you are a member, you have access to, and I'll need to log in so I can show you what this looks like. I promise I'm not a robot. Confirming my humanity. Okay, so as a member, you can go into Info Central. You can search by keyword. You can search by principle and practice topic area. There's a few extra we plugged in there as well beyond the 12 principles. And then you can also search by publication type. We do have some free resources that we've made available by principle and practice topic, and that's this button right up here. When you're looking for publications, it's right under services. You can go there and you can find the Principles and Practices Guide. It's a free download for members. If you're interested in purchasing a hard copy, you can let me know, or looks like you can contact us if you're interested in that. See this here? This little nugget that's tucked away, bearing the lead, but it's there. I promise you. Same thing with legal compliance checklist as well. That's been recently updated. The other thing that I'll mention in terms of a good idea in terms of looking for templates or samples of job descriptions is to actually go to our NC Nonprofit Careers page, which is listed under services. And you can search posted jobs. Anyone can go on here and look for jobs. So if you're looking for a sample of a development director role, you can either search up here, you can plug in some search terms, but then you can actually pull up, looks like this is Tar River Land Conservancy. You can see what sort of things they have listed here for a job description for this position. You can sort of crowdsource from this as a way to pull together a job description and make sure that the duties that you have listed that are affiliated with a certain position, that those are consistent, and that may give you some additional ideas for things you might want to add there. So please know that's a good resource for not only posting your job openings. This page alone gets, I want to say, like 64,000 hits a month. It's pretty insane. It's right up there in our top hits for people looking for either jobs or posting jobs. So this is a great resource for you. I wanted to mention that as well.
Unmute yourself, Eric, and share us what you mean. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
The forms that were in that pages 120, 21. I may have missed that.
So on page 120 and 121.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, 118.
Oh, 118.
118, 117.
So these are tools that you can use, in particular, page 118. If you notice on page 118, you've got the 4 stages of fundraising. And then down the left column, that very first column, you've got different types of fundraising. And so what we've done here is given kind of you a way to record what you might be doing related to each stage if you're going to utilize those different types of fundraising. So if you're going to send out a direct mailer in identification, what does that look like for your prospects? What does that look like under cultivation? What does that look like for solicitation and then for stewardship? So that's what 118 is.
I think we might have time for one more question here, Dr. Palmer,
Okay.
before we have to take a break.
Okay.
Kayla has asked, is earned revenue different from funds you receive from funders or grants?
Yes, that is different. Earned revenue is just what that means. You're selling something and you're getting paid for that something that you're selling, be it product or service. You might have a building, maybe you're renting out space in your building, or maybe you are, you're renting out space for a tenant, meaning they're there all the time, or you could be renting out the use of your space, like your multi-purpose room, or, you know, your outdoor space, or, you know, so that would be earned revenue. Earned revenue are those ways in which you might be able to generate dollars for your nonprofit in exchange for selling a product or service in exchange for money. Okay. Nonprofits can make a profit, right? Nonprofits can make a profit. We can have a profit at the end of the year. And so we can engage in selling products and services. Okay, we are at the point of a break. We have finished the fundraising topic. Just keep in mind, I've said this about all the fundamentals of managing a nonprofit. You have to find your rhythm. You have to determine your approach. You have to do it consistently so that you can see the results. The start, stop, it probably won't yield you the results that you desire when it comes to fundraising. It is very, very consistent, intentional work to bring dollars in a variety of ways. And when we do that, we're able to experience a diversified portfolio. So that's where we are. The time is 10:56. We're going to return at, Rebecca, do we want to return at 11:05? That's 10 minutes. Is that good for everyone? A 10-minute break?
That sounds good.
Okay.
I was
All
nodding.
right.
Okay, we'll see you back at 11:05.
Yep. Well, welcome back. We are getting ready to work on our final topic for the Institute, and that is human resources. So we're going to be working on our final topic, that is human resources. So I always like to share with us what we have at our disposal, right? So in the wraparound, we provided you a document. And Rebecca, I'm going to let you show them where that would be. And it's labeled handouts. So I'm going to let you take over from here, and then I'll jump back in.
Sure. We'll go ahead and, are you talking about the PDF, Dr. Palmer, with all the links? Yeah. Okay. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you all to download. And then you all can open it up, but we'll basically be clicking on links and opening them. So you'll have it for reference, but you'll be able to follow along as we're working through the various links throughout that sheet.
If you could go ahead and just show them what that looks like. Yeah. So this is what this looks like. So I just want to let you know kind of what we're going to be using. And if you would just scroll down. Up or down, I forget which way to go. So this is the document that you have, and it has links, and we're going to be showing this information as we go through the content. So
Yeah, it's not included in your workbook because it's basically just a bunch of links, and it would sort of it would defeat the purpose of including it in your workbook because it's only effective if you're able to open it up in PDF and click on links. So that's why it's included in the chat, and it'll also be in the wraparound. Let me know if you're not able to download that PDF for any reason, but it's there for you all in the chat to download and save to your files.
So I want to make sure that you get that all situated, since we're going to be referring to that. Now, Rebecca, was this sent in the reminder? Was this sent in the email initially?
No, it was
Okay.
not sent in the reminder.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm not communicating the wrong.
No worries.
Okay.
Thanks for your note, Heather. Looks like people are able to download.
Good. And I'm going to pause and give you time to do that and to get situated with that, because again, we're going to show it. We're going to show these items on the screen, but we also want you to be able to access those as well. And so we'll be going back and forth here. A couple other things to note in your manual. The pages that we are referring to as well start on page 126. And it runs all the way through page 133. So it ends, right? It concludes. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of hands-on work. We're going to be doing referring to links and documents. For those of you who are responsible for personnel administration and human resources in your respective agencies, you know this very, very well, that a lot of what we do related to human resources is guideline driven, and it is more or less information that we reference and resources that we reference as we go through our day-to-day managing the individuals, whether they're volunteers or paid individuals, kind of managing their movement, if I could call it that, within our nonprofit agencies. And so the way that we've divided up this information in terms of what you see on the screen is that we've divided it in really 3 sections. Recruitment, and you'll see that we've got about a half a dozen bullet points under recruitment. Retention, and if we could just scroll up on the document here, retention, and you'll see there's about a half a dozen or 10 or so bullet points there. Some of this information is repeated one section to the other, and then reward. And then when you get to the bottom of the handout, it ends with reward. So I just want us to just know what it is that you have at your disposal. We tried to organize this in a way that was real practical. And so in thinking about recruiting and hiring and bringing people into the organization, and then thinking about how do we retain them, how do we keep them, and then reward, how do we acknowledge them in the work that they are doing. So that's the way that we have this arranged. If we could go back to the PowerPoint and go to slide 5. I'm just going to show us this in one additional way. You'll see all of the information in one place. So here is the at a glance view of what it is that we are covering. Under recruitment, we're going to talk about paid employees versus staff, job descriptions, compensation, hiring practices, living wage. Those are the focal points. And when you look at the document that Rebecca just shared with you, it's organized the exact same way. And then we have resources to align with these. And then you have retention, background checks, conflict of interest, benefits for employees, employee handbooks, employee relations, employee retention, if employees have a grievance, and then what type of succession planning are we doing related to various roles. And then the reward, career development, promotion, professional development, evaluations, the different statuses of workers, meaning independent contractors versus not. And then in terms of compensation and review. Now, this list could be, we could add even more to this list, as you know, but these are the focal points for what it is that we are going to be sharing and communicating. So this is the, if you want to take a quick picture of this, that might be helpful. I'm gonna, there's a request here to send this via email. This is in the PowerPoint, and normally after every session, we send the PowerPoint. So if I could just get the group to just take a picture of this slide for the purpose of the session, and then that way you'll have it at your disposal right there in your phone. The handout reference went out already. The link for that went out in the chat. Were you able to open it? Is it possible to, do we need to post it in the chat again so you can grab it?
Some of the links don't show up in the chat. I'm not sure why. I know the survey will always come up, but a lot of the PDFs you share in the chat, some people can get it and some people can't.
Okay. Is there a way, Rebecca, to send that in an email to the whole group? I don't know if that's possible while we're in the Zoom session or not.
Yeah, I can send it by through Salesforce.
Okay.
I'll just attach it and send it to you all so
Okay.
you can have it. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know. I don't understand why PDFs have a hard time opening them in Zoom.
Mhm.
Seems to happen from time to time. Some people can, some can't.
Okay. And then if we could go back to the gallery, that would be great. If we could do that. I'm gonna see if I can. I don't typically try to open it, but I'm gonna try to open it here. Now, what it is doing, should it take us to download it? Is that what it does? Okay. So when it comes up, we have to save it, right? Okay, so I'm doing that. Handout reference, I'm saving it. And so now I have to go out of my viewing, right? I have to go out of the class. And then I have to go into the file that I saved it, right? And it's there. So you might have to, instead of it just opening right up, you may have to save it to your files. And let's see if that helps. I'm gonna pause to see if, to give you time. Don't be, I know sometimes I get kind of anxious when I'm on these calls and they start putting stuff in the chat and I can't keep up and it goes away and I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna pause here and let you save it and then let you open it up. Let's do it that way. And don't feel like you have to be rushed. You do not have to be rushed. I wanna make sure you have it. before we keep going. Full disclosure, I have anxieties too about some of how to access this information and using Zoom and all of that kind of stuff. So I am a part of that club. I just want to make sure everyone has that, because that's going to be important. Everybody got it?
I also just sent it to everyone who's in the class by email if it's easier
Good.
for you to open it that way.
Great. Carol, I can relate. Let me tell you. If only the team could unmute themselves and tell you all the conversations we have about Dr. Palmer and accessing this information while we're live.
I'm stressing right now because my video won't come back up because MetroNet's in my neighborhood doing work on the power line. So it's just like, if it's not one thing, it's three others.
Well, you know what? Just remain calm. Just
I think I
remain
was kicked
calm.
out 3 times now, right, Rebecca?
It's okay. It is okay. We are not going to leave anybody behind. That is not going to happen. We are all going to be together. Right, Lisa? All the conversations we have. Oh my gosh. All right. Does everybody have that document? Because we're going to, for the next 45 minutes, we are going to be referencing content and sharing the resource. That's how this is going to go. So we're going to go through the handout document. We're going to highlight and illuminate these bullet points, and then we're going to show you the resource that you have. So please stop me if you need to. The time is right at 11:20. So I am gonna take off here in just a second, and I am going to continue right until Rebecca 11:50. And then we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back to graduation. So that's the plan. Everybody ready? Lisa talked about that plane. So this is the last, yeah, here we go. We're coming in for a landing. And we're gonna walk through our human resources information. So we will be looking at the documents that we have linked in your resource, in your reference list. And we're going to be referencing handout material in your manual. So, you know, we're gonna take, well, we're already in the air, so we're gonna finish this trip. All right, so if you look at the handout, the very first section is really kind of our introduction to this whole fundamental management function, human resources. Some of you have exhaustive experience in human resources and personnel administration, and some of us do not. And then some of your organizations have a designated staff person who's responsible for onboarding, recruiting, you know, handling issues, providing support to staff. Some of our organizations are fortunate to have a person in place to do that. And some of our organizations, recruitment, retention, and reward is spread across different positions. Some executive directors have some of these duties and some do not. So I know that we're all coming from a different kind of place with who's in charge of all of this. And Lisa, please feel free to jump right in, because I know that you have a lens for this part of what it is that we're talking about today. So the introduction really gives us kind of this kind of fundamental way of thinking about the work that we do related to interacting with the people that are hired and or that volunteer with our agencies. And so the EEOC is a significant resource for us to reference. And then also the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits Principles and Practices Guide related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so one of the things that we believe that of all the different elements of what we do related to managing nonprofits, equity, diversity, and inclusion, if that is going to be an element of your work and the way that your nonprofit functions, of all the places it should appear boldly should be around the human resources management and personnel administration of the way in which your nonprofit functions. So in terms of the EEOC, what I like about this resource, this is in your manual. So you can click on the link if you'd like, but this is actually in your manual. And at the very, very top in your manual, you'll see where we got this information from. You'll see EEOC, you'll see EEOA, which is the act, and then the law. So there's the commission, there's the act, and then there's the law. And there are 3 different resources that you can reference there. And then we list the different acts here that align with the EEOC concept, if I could kind of frame it that way, and then an explanation of each of these. So if we are an employer, right, or we are bringing individuals into our organization to work, we should know, we may not know what these are, all of them, but we do need to know where to find this information. And so we've provided this here with you. And I really like this because it's a quick reference that you can very quickly look up the particular where the policies are. And you see we have a narrative there and you can quickly reference those. And so these are typically related to matters of human resources and personnel. Then if you look at page, if you look at the equity, diversity, and inclusion, and you look at the principles and practices guide, then you will see that particular principle in all of the practices. You can incorporate those. Team, then we can go to the link for the for if organizations want a policy, they want to write a policy related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Let's click on that link. So this is the resource that we've made available to you. If you keep going down in terms of thinking about a sample policy and kind of the resource and how it can support what you're doing. There's some additional resources there if you want to look as it relates to the content of a particular policy around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Then there's the third piece of this when you're thinking about a policy, defining what your organization, how your organization defines diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then the fourth part of this, it kind of gives us a backdrop as to why this is important. And then when you're creating the policy, who should be involved, and what should the policy include? And so here is that resource. And here's a kind of some other kind of ways to think about committing to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So just want to let you see what resource you have. Here is a basic sample policy related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that is right there at your fingertips. How to uphold the policy, and that's that resource for you. We oftentimes get the question, how do I write a policy related to equity, diversity, and inclusion? And so we've included that here for you if you don't have that. And if we go back to the gallery, just a real quick, how many of you have a EDI or DEI. This depends on how you frame it. How many of you have a policy? Just give me a thumbs up, or you can actually use any reaction that you choose. Okay. But this is a resource that you can use for that. Recruitment. So in terms of recruitment, as it relates to our topic for today. So one of the things that we get, and this question came up around the fundraising director or the fundraising position, like job description. One of the things that we have in this packet for you is a worksheet on how to complete a job description, how to write a job description. So you've got two pieces of information here. You've got on page 127, some questions that you would answer about roles and responsibilities. And you can use this template for each job that you have. You can also use this for volunteer roles. So your nonprofit has to decide what the roles and responsibilities are, but there are lots of resources out there. So you would be answering some pretty common questions around the job or the position. What is the title? What is the purpose? What do they do on a daily basis? You know, what skills does the person need? What's the work schedule? Who's going to supervise the person? So you would answer those kinds of questions to kind of get you jump started on writing the job description. When you look at page 128, you're moving and transferring that information to this template. You don't have to use this template. This is just a resource that you can use to get you started. And so that's important for you to know that you have there as a resource for you to use. And again, you can use this for all of the jobs that you have. I would encourage you, if you don't have job descriptions written, to write them. And also with your volunteers. We already know that in the bylaws, that's where we see descriptions of the board members and what their duties and responsibilities are. That's a pretty lengthy document. In the board governance training that we did workshop, we had job descriptions in there, responsibilities in that information. So that's another place for us to go. And so because we are nonprofits, we have job descriptions for paid employees and staff, and also for volunteers. We have two resources there that you can reference as it relates to volunteers. But the how to write the job description, that is the focus, and that is the resource that you that has that there. The next item on our list is about compensation. So in your handout packet, you have on page 129 what we call determinants of compensation. Now, if you remember when Tracy was with us last week, she talked about the Form 990. The Form 990 asks us to report what is our process for determining compensation. So this is a part of that reporting out that you do as a 501c3 back to the Internal Revenue. And so what we're giving you here are some prompts to help you kind of think about some determinants of compensation. And I also included on this reference sheet, there is a link to another resource that expounds upon this. So I don't want to just kind of give you this and not give you the backdrop, reference to this. So let's look at page 129. Let's look at this. And if we could pop that on the screen, that would be great too. Page 129 of the manual. So here are some determinants of compensation in terms of how we reference this information. And again, you know, every nonprofit is different. So I don't want us to think that there's one way to do this. So here's some things to think about. And in terms of, we talk living wages at the bottom, but I'm going to insert it here. You know, when we're considering kind of our philosophy around how we're going to compensate individuals, I know this can be difficult when you have limited dollars. Let me just say that out front. But we want to do our best to try to compensate individuals based on their market value. And so this resource, we've sourced it at the bottom. We've given you the source on the reference page. So we want to be looking at some external factors. We want to look at some internal factors. And then we want to look at the individuals that we are trying to compensate. It's up to your nonprofit as to what the philosophical backdrop is to how you go about doing this. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to speak to livable wage at all. I'm not suggesting that you have to, but I know sometimes you have a comment or two about that as it relates to a potential approach for a nonprofit. So some of those external factors, there are resources available that help us to understand fair labor practices as it relates to compensating individuals. And so we do have a Department of Labor of which you can access all kinds of information related to this. But you want to consider, especially now, a lot of our nonprofits are challenged with hiring because it's so competitive right now. And I wish I had an easy fix for that, but I don't. I don't. But there are some external factors to consider. Let's try to be consistent internally with the way in which we approach compensating individuals. And let's try to be as transparent with our employees as possible. And then, of course, are we doing merit types of reviews? Are we doing bonuses? Are we looking at cost of living? If you're watching the news like I'm watching the news with how things are changing with inflation, et cetera, more than ever before, there are a lot of moving parts to this at the present time. I do know some companies, even government entities, you know, folks are monitoring this pretty carefully, and they're having to pivot and change the way in which they approach determining compensation. So, but we did want to share this resource with you in that regard. So, Rebecca, I don't know if you have any comments there, but about living wage.
No, it looks like Eric popped something in the chat there that may be helpful to you all. Thanks, Eric. Just doing some research and being open to sort of being vulnerable to ask other nonprofits and maybe in a similar field or line of work as you, to just sort of test the waters and see what they're doing, what they're how they're finding ways of compensating. And we also do have, you know, our compensation and benefits report from on our website that you can access as a tool to help guide and inform how you your own pay philosophy and all those considerations that go into it.
Mm-hmm.
I know for the center we have cost of living increase, COLA, what we call it COLA, is determined by the, you know, approved by the board, determined by the board with our executive director weighing in. We also do offer merit increases as well. And those are determined through the review process and approved by a supervisor for that additional merit increase. But those are capped. Just to give you an example and be fully transparent about what the center does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if we could go back to the gallery. So in terms of recruitment, again, in terms of recruitment, you know, our focus is let's identify what the jobs are. Let's make sure we have job descriptions. If we're going to announce and try to recruit, it's important to minimally have that in place. Knowing what the roles and responsibilities are, considering compensation from a perspective of determinants and looking at various ways to determine compensation. Hiring practices as it relates to your nonprofit. I would definitely encourage us to refer to the U.S. Department of Labor for, in particular, EEOC is a site that it's exhaustive as to what's at your disposal related to that. So in terms of recruitment, that is kind of our focus. In terms of retention, background checks, that typically is a resource that you have to pay for. A lot of folks use Castle Branch as the resource for doing background checks. There are different types of background checks. You can do a statewide check, or you can do a national background check. That is based on a lot of different factors. Depends on the population people are working with as to the degree of background checks. If you are a organization that provides clinical support, there's the healthcare registry that you want to consider as well in terms of those types of checks. Conflict of interest. Most of our nonprofits are working with, I shouldn't say most, but quite a few, work with vulnerable populations, marginalized groups of people. And so conflict of interest and confidentiality is very important. And it's important to have a grievance process in place for your employees and volunteers, but also in terms of people that participate in your programs. And so I always just reference that in terms of that. It is common practice to have staff, board, and volunteers sign a conflict of interest and or confidentiality agreement. That's a very common practice. You can reference the North Carolina Center's legal compliance checklist. We referenced that before and went to the site and showed us how to access that as well. Another element of retention is employee benefits. Every nonprofit is different. We know that healthcare is a big issue around affordability. And so employee benefits is one. In your manual on page 130, we just kind of did a little page there to get you thinking about some ways that benefits how benefits might look. Maybe you have some flexing in your work schedules, making sure there's self-care for folks, making sure that we're helping them grow professionally. Maybe a resource there that you can use there, any kind of discounts that you can offer at various places. Work-life balance, that's another area. And so that's important to just kind of think about in terms of employee benefits. You may not be able to offer all of these, but it would be very, very, I would encourage you to consider some that don't cost a lot of money or don't cost money at all, might require you to work a little differently. But that's a way of thinking about that. The employee relations, that's another part, making sure that we have some open communication with the people that are either volunteering or are employed with us. Notice I keep putting the volunteers in there as well. Margarita, you have a question? I see your hand.
Yes. What is the policy of providing health insurance for employees of nonprofits?
So we are employers just like any other employer. We don't there's nothing different that is required for us or not required, I'm sorry. So whether you're a government entity, whether you're a business, whether you are a nonprofit, then that expectation is there to offer that resource to employees. I don't know, Lisa, do you have an example of Pastor Chom in terms of the healthcare?
I'm not sure if you're asking in reference to full-time or part-time, but in addition to what Dr. Palmer has explained, health benefits would typically not offered to part-time employees, or I believe it's up to 30 hours a week. You do not have to offer employee. So I'm not sure in which area you're asking, but that's just an additional information you can have there for part-time versus full-time. I think it's 30 hours.
Nonprofits, if you have less than 50 employees, you also do not have to offer health benefits.
So I'm sorry, there was some background noise. You say if we have less than 15 employees?
50. Less than 50.
Well,
I do know that there was an effort on the state level, and I don't know, team, if we have any insight on that. There was an effort to try to come together as a network of nonprofits to try to utilize a provider that it kind of, we got a little down the road with it, then we didn't. And so it's a difficult thing to accomplish, but yes. Hi, Jean. There's Jean. Thank you.
As you were talking about this, I thought it's just a timely moment to interrupt, if you don't mind.
Yes.
We have continued to explore the possibilities for insurance under an association plan. For lots of different reasons, it doesn't really work for our sector. And if we went for an association plan, it could potentially leave out a lot of nonprofit employees. So please be on the lookout, because we are hoping to have a webinar that helps us all understand what the options are, what the challenges are, and we'd love for you to participate. It will be a, what do you call it? A free webinar, because we really want the sector to begin to understand what these challenges are around healthcare. We're really hoping that Medicaid expansion comes through, and that could potentially benefit. And you know, the center is advocating strongly for Medicaid expansion. So it's just so important that we keep our employees healthy. And this is now my personal opinion. I will say it out loud. I think it's really just a travesty of justice that we are not able to make sure that those who help so many in our community on a daily basis cannot have access to health care. Drives me nuts. And so it continues to be a bee in my bonnet. And so anyway, thank you for letting me interrupt. I don't want you to think at all that we have laid this down and we are defeated. We just keep coming at it from different ways. And so we will continue. So keep a watch. Okay. Thank you. See you at graduation, folks.
Thank you, Jean. So yes, so Margarita, I hope that was helpful.
It was.
And thank you, Torrance, for chiming in.
Yes, and I totally agree with her. So because buying a health plan is so expensive for the whole team, we currently have 10 employees, and we are we don't know if it's legal, but we're providing a stipend to pay, like just at the end of the month, because I think it's unfair that we're not able, because of our budget, we're not able to buy like a good healthcare from a health provider, so an insurance provider. So we provide a stipend at the end of the month. Is that legal? Are we in compliance with that?
You can do that. You can offer to your employees support for that. That's your choice. Yes. Yep.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt again?
Uh-huh.
If you are members of the center, you can really take advantage of our broker, Marsh & McLennan, who really does help find the best possible health plans. And then they also offer so many other types of benefits for your employees. So please email me or Rebecca, Lisa, if you would like more information on that as well. Because we have been able to negotiate a pretty good relationship and options with Marsh and McLennan. And then as you're talking about other employee benefits, Mutual of America is a great add-on to your employee benefits programs. And because of our relationship with them and the scale of how we are doing things, your cost for participating in a Mutual of America 403B is vastly reduced. So there's another opportunity. And again, I think what we will do is have a webinar that helps to, our public and especially our members understand what the offerings are that we have.
Okay.
So again, see you at graduation.
Great. Also in your manual on page 132, we put in just like a worksheet here for you to kind of brainstorm for your organization, employee relations options that might work for you and employee retention options. So if you look at pages 130, we've got a list of benefits there, right? And then you look at page 131, we have some ways to think about employee relations, right? Interacting with our folks. And then here, what we've given you is like a strategy, kind of strategic thinking about if it's a paid staff person, what employee relations items might work. And then if it's related to retention for your paid staff, what might work. The hot topic is healthcare. I think we heard that loud and clear. The next thing would be for your nonprofit to do its research on what it might be able to afford with the two resources that Jean just recommended for us. And then volunteers the same. So employee relations, employee retention, what kinds of things might work for your volunteers, your board of directors, what might you do from a relations versus retentions perspective, program participants, the same, and then donors. So we just kind of wanted you to think about your stakeholder groups and how do we continue with healthy relationships, productive relationships, and also what might we do in terms of retention. So we've provided that there for you in that regard. In terms of just thinking about, if you look at the handout reference page, the employee handbook, many of your organizations have employee handbooks. The link there is a table of contents. That is just an example of what a employee handbook might look like. Rebecca took you to Information Central on the website. That's where you can find this resource. That's where you can find this resource, as well as succession planning and any policies around succession planning. Notice we're taking you back to the NC Center for Nonprofits site because we have pretty much all of this information listed there for your review. We want to make sure too that there's a grievance process for your folks, for all of those stakeholder groups. If they have a concern, how do they file a grievance? One thing I would encourage us to do when individuals express a concern through your grievance process, it's important for you to respond. You may not necessarily have an answer to their concern. You may not even have a resolution at the time that they bring the concern forth, but you want to make sure that you document that you consulted with them about their concern and that you are aware of their concern and you acknowledge it. That is where we make a mistake, is that people express a concern and it's hidden. It's not necessarily, folks are not aware of it. And so it's important that that we make sure that does happen. Succession planning is a topic all in and of itself. Some of your organizations are thinking about when the current executive director, for example, is no longer there, what will they do? We need to be thinking that if there's a transition that is planned, that's great, we've planned for it, but there are also transitions that happen that are not planned. And so we need to be thinking about those key roles and how we're going to go about planning. There is a resource that we have the link here. This resource is a report that was done to give us an idea of executive directors transitioning out of their roles over a period of time. And I was just reviewing this with a colleague of mine week before last, just reviewing this very document. It's very informative in telling us what we could expect in the state of North Carolina overall related to succession planning. So that's important to understand and remember. So that's recruitment and retention. Reward, career development, promotion, professional development. Again, it's more of what is and how will your nonprofit engage in career development and promoting individuals and professional development. Career development is different than professional development. Career development is all about supporting your employees with their career aspirations and goals. Professional development is about skill building, knowledge building around a particular topic, focus, subject, expertise, and not necessarily about career development. So we're giving you these things for you to kind of think about. On page 133 of your manual, we have some attributes of a nonprofit leader and manager. We could go a lot of different ways with this, but this idea of looking for attributes of individuals who might be able to work in leadership roles. Some of your organizations have performance evaluation as a part of the way in which you reward employees. It's not uncommon to evaluate volunteers. We should be evaluating volunteers as well. Volunteers can be fired. I know that seems odd, but they can be. And so we want to hold them accountable as well. And when we are doing evaluations, it's important to identify how often you're going to do those and what are you evaluating. Are you evaluating their performance, meaning their results? Are you evaluating attributes like on page 133? Are you evaluating their skills and what they bring to the table? But it is important to communicate that to our staffs and employees. Another item on our list under reward is compensation. We've talked about that already in terms of the determinants. And then, of course, one of the areas that requires some attention from us is the status of our workers. Are they independent contractors or are they employees of our nonprofits? And that is based on the way in which they have to show up to do the work that you have recruited them to do. And so that can be different from one nonprofit to the next. Again, in looking at reward, career development, promotion, professional development, performance in terms of evaluation, reviewing compensation, and status of workers. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. Each nonprofit is different. And you can add to these different ways in which we've framed human resources and how we need to focus on human resources. Notice.
No, go ahead. I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, notice there are in our list of references and the handouts that we have, notice those references are used for different purposes. So it's one reference, it's one source, but it's used for multiple purposes. That's why we organized your document so that you could easily reference those. and be able to get, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, again, this may be some elementary point to the group, but in case some are not quite as familiar, please make sure we have a link there, reference for you to go look up non-exempt and exempt employees. It's important for you to understand the difference, and as well, the difference between the independent contractor. I know I had to learn the hard way when we hired independent contractors. They are there, just as they say, they're independent contractors. You cannot set their hours. You cannot give them a work. They come in and tell you how they're going to work and what it is that they can do for you and the hours that they can give you to do them. So you're not treating them as a regular employee. So that was, again, I came in already with a job description, what they're going to do. And then I was like, no, that's wrong. I can't do that. So just keep that in mind. And again, the link is very helpful to helping you determine between a non-exempt employee and an exempt employee. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Lisa, for that reminder.
Mhm.
Because we do have a variety of scenarios, don't we? We have a variety of scenarios in nonprofit settings. And so it's important for us to know.
Yeah.
Kind of
It is really tricky because I remember, an independent contractor may be with you for a while. And if they're there working with you, you automatically start treating them like an employee, and then you have to they quickly remind you,
They're not.
I'm not an employee. Right. Right.
So yes, are there may be a few questions in the chat team before we transition, before we take our break.
So
What
Patrice,
what's IC?
Independent contractor.
Oh,
I'm
independent
assuming, yeah.
contractor. Got it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It took me a minute. Okay.
Job description is essentially the statement of work for the cert rest, right?
Yes. That's a significant takeaway. That
So
is a
an
significant
yeah. So an exempt employee is not entitled to overtime pay. There's some labor standards that says you have to earn a minimum of $684 per week in the form of a salary, and non-exempt, more like your hourly employees, must be paid overtime if they are going over. But pretty much a simple way to say it, non-exempt, you're pretty much an hourly employee and you're paying them by the hour.
Okay.
If someone has a more simpler version to explain that, feel free.
So that's where we are with human resources. Are there any just questions or comment about the information that we shared? Like I said, this is not a conclusive list. This is we have generated this based on the inquiries that we get in terms of questions that folks have about human resources. And again, this topic in general is very informative. There are some things that you will learn over time. So I don't want you to be too hard on yourself either with the amount of information and the particulars around HR as it relates to the law. It does take time. Some nonprofits have a human resource committee. The board has a human resource committee or personnel administration committee or personnel committee. Oftentimes there's a board member who has expertise in HR and they can lend their expertise to guiding the work. Some of our nonprofits are volunteer-led and volunteer-run, but there are also some expectations that are held as it relates to how those individuals do the work that they do for your nonprofit. So you want to make sure that you reference the volunteer administration, volunteer association. There's a link for that as well. Well, Rebecca, I'm going to conclude with HR, and I am going to pass it over to you to put us into our break and to get us ready for graduation.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Palmer. I'm sorry that I tried to send that attachment, that handout resource attachment via Salesforce, and I was getting an error code when I tried to send it twice. So it will be attached in the wraparound from today's session. So you will have all those links. You can download it, save it to your desktop or wherever you store things like that. and we'll be good to go there. Let's go ahead and come back here at 12:10 and we'll come back with graduation. I'm going to go ahead and change my background screen. Some of you have already done that to your graduation themes. And I'll pop that link in there in the chat if you're looking to download one of those backgrounds. But take care of yourself first. Grab some water, coffee, tea, whatever you need. Bio breaks, and we'll be back here at 12:10. Hey, we are coming back. Thank you for that music, Leslie. We thought we would cue that up for everyone's return from a break. Welcome back. I like all the backgrounds I'm seeing. We will be taking some class photos later on. You're not obligated to be in the photo. We would love to see your faces though, if you're willing to have your video shown. We'll be doing that a little later. And we send out a class photo with everyone's picture in one page, and also your certificate in the mail from the center saying that you completed this series. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have Leslie pull up our agenda slide and just go over our quick agenda here. We'll have a welcome from Lisa and Dr. Palmer. Jean is with us to offer a quick commencement. We'll be conferring our certificates, watching our graduation video. Thanks to those of you that were able to participate in that. It's about 7 minutes long or so. Hopefully you have time to show that. If not, we'll just include the link in the wraparound email and you can watch that on your own time. But I'm hoping we'll have enough time. Take some photos, talk about some last minute closing items, making sure you all know sort of next steps. Let me go ahead and invite one more person. There we go. And then we'll proceed from there. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Lisa and Dr. Palmer.
All right. Congratulations, cohort 22. Our plane has landed. We're all back from our wonderful retreat together that we've had over these past 6 weeks. May not have felt like a vacation or a retreat, but it really was. So you made it through. It must be a very proud moment for you all. I know it is for us. We at the center hope you cherish the fruits of your hard work. And I hope that the Nonprofit Management Institute and everything that you've learned will help improve all that you're trying to do to enhance your organization. We really mean that. Remember, we're here as a resource to help you. If there's something that you need, or put it on Facebook, go out there and put a comment for us to look at, because we look at it from past cohorts and try to keep the momentum going. Again, congratulations and happy graduation, I want to say. Again, thank you to our wonderful staff here at the center. We have Jean Tedrow, Dr. Palmer, Rebecca, and Leslie, who are all part of our program team here at the center. If you ever need anything, just give us a call and reach out. So again, happy graduation. Dr. Palmer?
Yes, happy graduation. It's time to celebrate. It's always great to celebrate when you reach a major milestone. It was great getting to know each of you, and welcome to our spring 22 graduation ceremony. It was a delight and a pleasure to work with each of you over the last 6 weeks. And we've gotten to know each other in a unique kind of way as it relates to building capacity of nonprofits. We are always excited at this time during the Nonprofit Management Institute experience, because this is where you get to be a part of receiving the actual conferring and certificate that we shared with you when you registered. And so again, I say congratulations. welcome to the ceremony. And I am going to pass it over to our commencement speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and congratulations. You did it. Let me quote Dr. Palmer. Building our own and our organization's capacity is a marathon, not a sprint, and you're part of the marathon. So thank you for all of what you have done over these past few weeks. You have successfully completed the Center's Nonprofit Management Institute. This is important not just for the learning you gained. You took your role in the nonprofit sector seriously. You understand how important it is to develop yourself, and you have committed to capacity building for your organization. You know that there are many challenges in achieving your mission every day. You bring your passion for your mission to your work. These past couple of years have been anything but easy. Many of you carried on in the face of serious health factors, supporting your staff, delivering services in new ways, learning remote platforms. Many of you also have been homeschooling children or caring for other family members during this pandemic. And we are beginning to make yet another shift that allows us to begin seeing our colleagues more often in person. So let's just pause for a minute to commend you. Please applaud for yourself and pat yourself on the back. Let's hear the applause. So I'd like to share with you all. I'd like to share with you all this afternoon just what I see, what I've heard, and I've been listening in the background. What some of our key takeaways are from our learnings together. First of all, let's remember our why. Remembering your why can be deeply personal. Your lived experiences bring you to do the work that you do. It is often so difficult, even as it is rewarding and soul satisfying. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for more than 40 years. And one of the things I've appreciated is knowing that when I put my feet on the floor in the morning, I will have meaningful work, living into my purpose. I try to remember that all the administrative, operational, resource management aspects of my job are necessary, but not the essence of my why. There are means to achieve and fulfill my purpose, like you. But passion and mission can be lost without good management and operations. Both are essential. If I do focus on both, then I am fulfilling my purpose. You are too. Let's continue to grow personally and professionally. What you are doing here is evidence of your commitment. The professional development can be as intensive as a graduate degree, as exciting and valuable as this institute, and can be as simple as taking time out of your work to read and reflect. Being busy is not always the same as being productive. Remember that your organization is a reflection of you and all who work with you, volunteers and staff. They all need support, affirmation, and capacity building. Remember to stop and say thank you to those who work with you. Nonprofit work is a team sport, and none of us can go it alone. Let's remember to lead from the seat we are in. Know what your responsibilities are, understand your personal vision, and bring your organization to a shared vision. Know what you know and accept that you don't know everything and won't know everything to do your job. If you're executive directors or in senior management, you know that each day brings new challenges, often unseen. That said, let's be ready to pivot. The conditions of the pandemic are changing again. The state of the nonprofit sector is quite fragile, in my opinion. We all keep talking about resilience, but it may be just that we are tired or exhausted. So let's pace ourselves. If you're here today, as we said, pat yourself on the back because you've been leading your team from the seat you're in, given the current circumstances, and you have survived. Recently, I went out for an in-person visit to colleagues in Greensboro. Sorry, I didn't stop and have lunch with you, Dr. Palmer. But I enjoyed seeing a couple of colleagues. And as I was getting in my car, I could feel this funny feeling. And I got in my car and I sat in my car for a few minutes and I said, what is this I'm feeling? It was joy. It was joy, simple joy. I had sat with two colleagues who I just dearly appreciate. And as I left them, I realized that the bliss of my job was returning, that feeling of being behind the curtain on a Zoom screen has the possibility of going away and I can be with people again. And that feels wonderful. And I'm going to guess for you that it's also true. So live into your leadership role. Recognize the leadership in those with whom you serve. Each of us and each on our teams can lead and be a leader. Not everyone will be an executive director, but the leadership skills needed to do each position can be developed, and personal, professional growth can be developed from any seat in the room. When you develop your team, share and cultivate leadership with all those with whom you work, you will become a stronger leader. I've often said, if I want to take all the credit, then I need to be ready to take all the blame. While the buck stops here, getting here is a shared journey, and many hands lighten the load and increases the joy, especially if we can do it in person. When we achieve our mission, we can all celebrate and share in the success. As we consider our leadership roles, we have the opportunity to live into our values around equity, diversity, and inclusion. Our mission work is strengthened as a result. I appreciate the depth of the discussion that Dr. Palmer shared in today's session on HR. In reality, these values can and should be integrated across all that we do. As we're doing so much for others, let's find ways to practice self-care. Not all organizations have strong leave policies, although they should wherever possible. We give so much of ourselves each day, and in order to find that joy each morning when our feet hit the floor, we must replenish. However, you can do this in ways that are fitting for you. Take a walk, go to a movie, read a good book, enjoy a good meal, and take vacations that are provided by your organization and encouraging all staff to do the same. How many of us nonprofiteers have gotten to the end of our fiscal year and we look back and we go, oh, I didn't take my vacation. Maybe that's the second or third year in a row that happened. This is not good, folks. Let's take the vacation that is coming to us and know that our organizations will be okay as we step away. In concluding, we know many of us have learned so much about ourselves during this time. We hope one of the highlights has been learning more about what you can do, must do, and what you can let go of. You're making it. We want you to know how much we at the center value you, your hard work, your compassion, your commitment to making your communities better and stronger. We also need each of you to continue to take care of each other and yourselves. We're going to need each of you and your organizations more than before as we rebuild our communities after all of this pandemic mess. It seems that the dividing line of these times is the before COVID and after COVID, at least for me. And it's okay. Some of us are old enough to remember where we were when JFK and Dr. King died or killed, where we were on 9/11, and now our times with COVID. This is a shared experience that we will remember for a very long time. I hope that you found this learning experience to be valuable, and we hope that you are members of the Center for Nonprofits, or at least you leave here today and go, oh, I'm missing something, I'm going to become a member. Together, we really have a stronger voice. Remember what we were talking about on health insurance. It's so important for you all to join and strengthen the voice that we want to use. We need you at our table. as we seek to educate, connect, and advocate for the nonprofit sector. Again, congratulations to all, and let me say again, thank you to our sponsors and our partners, Triangle Community Foundation, the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, and Dr. Palmer, got to give you a shout out. Again, you just bring it on home. Thank you so much for your guidance throughout this whole program, and to the center team that brought this to you, Lisa, Rebecca, and Leslie. Let's give a round of applause for that cool team. Thank you all again for being here present with us. Be well. And I turn it back to you, Lisa.
I think I'm gonna hand it back over to Rebecca, but I was reading the comments coming through and I really laughed at Heather's. I may just ugly cry. You made her ugly cry, Jean.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't see that. I'll have to go look.
Rebecca, don't you take us home?
Sure thing, sure thing. Dr. Palmer, I'm gonna pass it over to you to confer the certificates. And I think, yep, Leslie's gonna show our graduate slides, and then we'll carry on with class photos.
So this is the official conferring of the certificates. Notice in the slide, we have each of your names listed and the name of your organization. And so we are going to phase through and give a moment or a few seconds on each slide so that we can see all of our participants and our congratulatory slides here for the conferring of the certificates. And so I'm just going to pause here and let Leslie show us. Please look for your name. These are in alphabetical order by last name. Congratulations to each of you again. Here's my handshake. I'm extending it virtually to everyone. Congratulating you.
Thank you.
As you receive your this honor.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Palmer. Let's go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and go back to the gallery. We'll do some quick photos. This is where I am going to try my best to, come on, here we go. Get our snipping tool ready to go. So I'm going to be on the first screen here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my screen froze, so I'm hoping this works. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then I'll snap this first screen here. 1, 2, 3. All right. I'm going to save that real quick. Screen 1. You know, if we weren't virtual and we were actually in person, this may actually be easier. We added to the list of things that would be easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and take one of the second screen. If you're on screen 2, I'm going to go ahead and use my snipping tool. I'll tell you when. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, save that one before I lose it. Screen 2. So in the interest of time and getting us to go ahead and close on time, I want to just run over a couple of things in closing. Leslie, if you'll go ahead and show us our last screen here so I don't leave anything out. Rather than show the video, it's about 7 minutes long. For those of you that participated, thank you. You'll have a link to that in your wraparound with the usual suspects in your wraparound, like links to the recording, slide deck, the handout, a session evaluation as well. We ask you to fill out one more evaluation. We also include a participant list. If you're not comfortable sharing your number and email address, please let me know. I'd be happy to kind of block that out for you. It's no harm, no foul. It's certainly your prerogative and your decision. But we do like to have a way for one of all of you to be able to connect with one another after the series. I will remind you about the Facebook group, which will continue on, and you can join that, continue to share resources and ideas, and all of that. And Sophia, I see your message there. We can do that for sure. And also want to mention, we'll be sending the certificates and the class photos to you in the mail. We have your mailing address, so you'll get those in the coming weeks ahead. We have to print those out and order them and all that, so they'll be coming your way. I also did want to share with you the method for signing up for those credits with the Duke Nonprofit Management Certificate Program. It is 15 credits out of 70 some odd credits that you need for that certificate. But the way that we're doing it this year is to go ahead and have you fill out a form. It's on Microsoft. I'll put the link in the chat so you have that. And it'll also be included in the wraparound, this link to this form. And essentially what you'll do is ask you just, your name, contact information, a way for them to reach you. And then that way they can go ahead and initiate that process of having you fill out a fillable PDF. That then we authorize based on your attendance and participation in the course, and then it comes back to you and they get payment from you for those credit hours, and then you get confirmation of that. So that's that, and like I said, that link will also be in the wraparound. I'll go ahead and just pop the session evaluation in the chat as well, so you can take a couple minutes to complete that. It shouldn't take that long, but just a final congratulations. Well done. You did it. We landed this plane. Thanks to all of our colleagues who were a big part of making this happen. We're so thrilled to have ushered in another cohort of nonprofit leaders who have been through this institute. And we look forward to seeing you all in the future, hopefully in person. Our conference this year in November will be in person and in Durham. So look out for that. We'd love to see you all and hope you can attend. But keep us posted. Let us know how you're doing. And congratulations. Well done. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Great afternoon.